Russian authorities say a man suspected of shooting a deputy chief of Russia's military intelligence agency in Moscow has been detained in Dubai.
Portugal began voting in the second round of its presidential election on Sunday, with the country set to choose between the center-left and the far-right candidates.
A man suspected of shooting a deputy chief of Russia's military intelligence agency in Moscow has been detained in Dubai and handed over to Russia, authorities said on Sunday. Russia's Federal Security Service said a Russian citizen was detained on suspicion of carrying out the shooting, while two accomplices were identified. It claims one was detained in Moscow while another left for Ukraine. Vladimir Alexeyev was hospitalized after being shot several times on Friday by an assailant at an apartment building in northwestern Moscow. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov blamed Ukraine for the shooting, calling it a terrorist act intended to derail peace talks. Since Moscow launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Russian authorities have blamed Kyiv for several assassinations of military officers and public figures in Russia. Ukraine has claimed responsibility for some of them, but has yet to comment in this case.
Portugal began voting in the second round of its presidential election on Sunday, with the country set to choose between the center-left Antonio José Seguro and the far-right André Ventura. Over 11 million people are eligible to vote, with the first exit polls expected at around 8 p.m. local time. Socialist Party candidate Antonio José Seguro is expected to beat André Ventura, the leader of the populist Chega party. In the first round, Seguro won 31% of the vote, while Ventura took over 23%. This is the first time in 40 years that a second round has been needed in a Portuguese presidential election. The last runoff was in 1986, saw a historic comeback by Mário Soares, who united the left to beat his conservative rival. Seguro has presented himself as a moderate candidate who will bring stability to the country, while Ventura's strong showing in the first round marks another milestone in Europe's shift towards the far right.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will meet U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington on Wednesday to discuss recent talks with Iran on its nuclear program. Netanyahu's office said he believes negotiations with Iran must include limiting its ballistic missiles program and support of militant groups in the region, something Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has resisted.
موضوع دفاعی ما هست، بحث امنیتی ما هست. به هیچ وجه قابل مذاکره نیست، نه الان نه هیچگاه در آینده.
Friday's indirect talks in Oman were the first diplomatic encounter between the two nations since the U.S. struck Iranian nuclear sites during a 12-day conflict with Israel in June.
ولی بی‌اعتمادی بسیار زیادی وجود داره. چگونه میشه اعتماد ایجاد کرد؟ به نظر من کار آسانی نیست. البته این بی‌اعتمادی از طرف آمریکا ایجاد شده. در دور قبلی مذاکرات این ما نبودیم که وسط مذاکرات اقدام به تهاجم نظامی کردیم.
The U.S. has recently sent the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln and other warships to the region, to which Tehran responded that it would target U.S. bases if the U.S. attacked Iranian territory.
The European vehicle battery venture Automotive Cells, or ACC, is shelving plans to build battery gigafactories in Italy and Germany, the Italian Metal Workers Union OEM said on Saturday. The company, which is backed by automotive giant Stellantis, said it was considering shutting down the projects, which have been on hold since 2024 amid slower than expected growth for electric vehicles. The new ACC sites were among dozens of battery projects emerging in Europe as it seeks to reduce reliance on Chinese products, but were halted as the company weighed shifting to a less expensive battery technology. Stellantis, which owns brands such as Peugeot and Jeep, warned on Friday that it had overestimated the speed at which consumers would shift towards electric vehicles. The company said it would take a €22 billion hit and sell a stake in its battery joint venture.